How you doing? Today we're going to be ranking Five Nights at Freddy's games for the third time. This time we're going to be ranking it based off of its story. Now this is the most exciting ranking for me because ranking Five Nights at Freddy's based off of the story is something very, well, convoluted in and of itself because you have a lot of benefactors to think about in terms of the story, such as how does it work as a standalone, how does it work as a follow-up or a prequel or some story point for the rest of the franchise, and a couple other things such as that. So this is going to be a very interesting ranking, but just like the previous two videos, I'm not including the spin-offs, not going to include FNAF World, and I'm not going to include Special Delivery, despite the fact that it's kind of the linkage between Help Wanted and Security Breach. It doesn't really have much going for it other than emails, so there's really no point into trying to discuss it, and the concept in and of itself is just there. So, starting off bottom of the barrel, it should be no surprise that the worst of the worst is FNAF Security Breach. Do I even need to explain why this game has the worst story of all the FNAF games? It should come without any surprise that this is obviously the worst of the worst, and it should be known too that I absolutely hate retcons. I can't stand retcons. I think retcons are a weak, cheap excuse to say that essentially you fucked up writing and now you have to undo it. Because if you fuck up, you might as well keep the ball rolling or just stop altogether. Overall, Security Breach retconned so much that was earned in this franchise. We thought we earned some lore, some information. We thought we earned some story that is actually meaningful to helping us solve this confusing franchise story. And then you spit in our face by bringing back the villain again. Instead of having this brand new villain, even though this brand new villain is possessed by the old villain, you could have had her be a standout villain and eventually, just be on her own, doing her own thing. But no, you had to resort to the old reliable. Honestly, it's really pathetic to think about that you had all this and you just tossed it away for what? To keep this franchise alive, to have a definitive ending. You had a definitive ending like 2-3 times already, Scott. Like, I don't know if this was you writing this story, if this was Steel Wool and they fucked up somewhere and so they had to redo the whole thing and now they're saving it for a ruin. Obviously they had to redo a lot because the story was pretty cut and dry, pretty clear. Gregory gets stuck in the pizzeria. Vanessa has Two-Face. One time she's possessed, other time she is okay. When she's alright, she's trying to help Gregory. When she's possessed, she's trying to kill Gregory, and back and forth in that game, and eventually they figure out how to destroy Glitch Trap. That's what you think that this story is going to be about, but apparently Steel Wool marketed that and did the classic FNAF thing where they put it in the marketing, put it obviously that here's what you're going to see, and then they tossed it away. And just did something completely unknown. Honestly, I don't understand the story, I don't know the story, I don't care about the story. It's so bad, it's so terrible, that we might as well just write it out of history. Coming in 8th place, another unpopular opinion, but who cares? Sister Location. This is where things started to go off the rails. Now, initially, when Sister Location was teased, I thought this game was a new story, a new chapter, completely in like an alternate universe, or maybe it was in the same universe and it was just doing something like far in the future with futuristic robots that move around, have faceplates and stuff like that. That's what I thought. And it was just based around Circus Baby's Pizza World, that spin-off place, that bootleg place of FNAF. That's not what we got. We got 1980s sci-fi robots. We got answers that are honestly so infuriating to think about. Instead of it being a classic paranormal ghost story, now it's a sci-fi story, and the spirits are transferred through a liquid soul substance called Remnant, and their emotions of agony is what keeps them going. I don't know why we needed that explanation, why we needed to explore that. Why did we have to retcon this again? Why couldn't we just stay down the path that we were on? Why did we have to take such a giant leap? Why couldn't this be a spin-off? Why couldn't this be an alternate universe? Many questions that I still have to this day. And there's still questions that I still have about the game in it of itself. Why is Circus Baby not here? Why do we still fall for Circus Baby's ruse even though she reveals herself on night 4? before we even help her out what happened between Ennard and Circus Baby, and why was it through source code and not through the games, or elaborated through the games in any way? Who's Michael? What is FNAF 4? Does anybody know what FNAF 4 is? The fact that I have FNAF 4 over this game is shocking in and of itself, but damn, the story, it just goes off the rails. And I know a lot of people enjoy the actual story for the actual gameplay, but I never enjoyed it. I never enjoyed Sister Location. Even when it came out the first time I watched it, I played it, I never had any enjoyment from it. It just didn't feel like FNAF to me. It felt like something else. And the comedy, that's one of the biggest things. I do not like this FNAF comedy. It's the type of comedy that they just kind of force feed you. Rather than letting, you know, it be natural humor, they force feed you the comedy. Like, they like, hey, you better laugh right now. You're gonna laugh right now. You're gonna laugh right now. It's that MCU shit that I just can't stand. I don't like when I'm force-fed comedy. I prefer when comedy is natural and you don't expect it. Like, for example, the comedy from the phone guy in the first few FNAF games where he'll say something and he doesn't mean to be funny, but it's so what the fuck that you just can't help but laugh. Because it's just like, what? And so overall, Sister Location was just not a game I cared about. I really like how they utilized Ennard and Elizabeth Afton, but the whole thing about, is Elizabeth Afton in control of this? Or is it Circus Baby is just an advanced AI with a personality? No one knows, and I don't care. Following the train of still poorly written stories, taking 7th place is gonna be FNAF Help Wanted. FNAF Help Wanted could have been one of the better stories of this franchise. It could have been a tribute game to all these other games. It could have been a game franchise. It could have been like a game in a game. It's like, oh, all these are games, and they just created these games in this new story, in this new universe we're creating. But that's not what we got. Instead of getting a reboot or a completely new franchise, new story, we got Fazbear Entertainment is back for some reason. They created games based off of what we've been through. Hired by Scott Cawthon, or an indie developer or whatever, and then fired him, and then now somehow Afton is still alive and his soul has been scanned into the game through circuit boards. It's not a demon. It's not a demon. It's not an actual virus that's just taking on the personification of who Afton was. It is Afton, and that's part of the problem of why I don't like this story. Why I have it above the other stories is because it doesn't piss me off as much, because it's not as big of a deal as it seems, because FNAF VR doesn't really focus on that story. It focuses more on building up the new villain, which is Vanessa, or Vanny, whoever you want to call her. It's confirmed by now, it's Vanessa and Vanny, same person. Problem is that Security Breach puts this even lower than it should be, because the hype, which was this game, which was supposed to build up this new villain, led to shit in Security Breach. So I can't even enjoy Help Wanted for that. Help Wanted story for that. I know there was a part of the story where you play as a kid at some point going to a party and then you get stuffed inside a suit. If that was the ending of the game, the only thing going for it, and maybe setting up a new story, possibly, I would have loved this story. Fortunately, Help Wanted tried to do the same thing that a lot of franchises do, which is go back, retcon, bring him back one more time in the crazy manner of the sci-fi world. I'm done. No. 6th place is gonna be FNAF 4. This is where it all went downhill. Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was originally supposed to be cut and dry, set in stone, basic, the bite of 87 answered. The bite of 87 was going to be this kid who got bitten, and that was just going to be the answer, and we would have the mystery, and then we would have to figure out how Jeremy Fitzgerald ties into this, and Mike Schmidt ties into this, and all that. No, that's not what we got. Mid-development, Scott decided to retcon the Bite of 87 to make it the Bite of 83, despite the fact that we have no prior knowledge of the Bite of 83, and now we have the Bite of 83. And it still doesn't make sense to this day. Not to mention that following sister locations coming up, now we have an even bigger confusion. Who the hell are we playing as in FNAF 4? Is it Mike? Is it the crying child? Is it nightmares that we're playing in? Are these just nightmares that we're seeing? Somebody's nightmares? Or are these actual animatronics that are Funtime animatronics taking on the physical apparition of the nightmare animatronics? I don't know. I don't understand. To this day, it is just a mess of a story. And to this day, it kind of ticks me a little bit that Scott is like, oh, I'm shocked that nobody figured it out. Yeah, how are we supposed to figure out that's the bite of 83 when we have no prior knowledge to the bite of 83? No one knows. We're also never going to know what the hell was in the box, but apparently what was in the box was everything put together, which I think that led to Dream Theory, and that just pissed off everybody. So I don't know. FNAF 4 is just infuriating with its story. It's honestly one of the biggest things about FNAF 4 that just makes me enjoy it even less, because it's like, what happened here? What is the story? What is the plush bear walkie-talkie radio thing? I don't know. I don't care, because this is the point in time where it's just like things started to go downhill, and I was aware of that, but I didn't know for sure until Sister Location was like the nail in the coffin. So, hi, Future Rex here. I just wanted to add some things that I completely negated to talk about in the actual video. Now, you may have noticed from shitty editing that I actually changed FNAF 4 and FNAF Help Wanted's placements. Originally, 7th place was FNAF 4, 6th place was Help Wanted. I actually changed that because, looking back on it, when I was reviewing and talking about FNAF 4, I completely overlooked and missed the whole story of FNAF 4, which is about the crying child. I was so caught up with the bite 83 that I didn't even talk about the actual tragedy going on with the story. So I thought I'd key you in on that by saying FNAF 4 is pretty sad. It's pretty tragic. That kid's life is pretty shitty, man. Honestly, it was very well told. It's definitely very sad too, the ending with the I will put you back together. I can't believe I even forgot to talk about that, honestly. The whole I will put you back together scene is one of the best in the franchise. Confusing? Yeah. Still don't know who the fuck said it. But shit, it's definitely one of the most emotional scenes in the whole franchise. So I just thought I'd fill that gap in, because I know I completely forgot to talk about it. And that's why FNAF 4 takes 6th place. Alright, now fuck off. Coming in at 5th place is going to be Ultimate Custom Night. The concept of Ultimate Custom Night is it takes place in hell, and it's supposed to be Afton's perspective, William Afton's perspective. You're in hell, you're eternally suffering by being tormented by the same animatronics that Mike had to go through every single game. Now, I think that's an amazing, cool, awesome concept, and which is why it's in the middle of this list. It doesn't have to retcon, it doesn't have to do some crazy ass shit to explain itself. It's pretty self-explanatory, it's well done, it's well subtly made, just like the original FNAF games. The problem for me with this story is that the game is a walking contradiction to its story. The story is supposed to represent eternal hell, eternal suffering, constantly going back and dying over and over again. Unfortunately, this game is too comedic and goofy to feel like that. It is almost like a meme game to make a light of everything, similar in the vein of FNAF World, and it's supposed to be like this fun little game that's the ultimate custom night of all the games, and you have all these characters that you can face against, and it's supposed to be like a fun little game. It's a little too comedic and too goofy to make you think that, oh wait, this is supposed to be hell, but it doesn't feel like hell. The only thing that makes it feel like hell is the intensity and the amount of animatronics you're dealing with, the overload, but there's no fear factor. You don't get afraid from any of the animatronics because this game is not here to scare you, it's here to overwhelm you, and that's part of the problem, because it contradicts the story that's being told here, which is why it's got to land 5th place for me, because while it's a cool concept, the execution is a walking contradiction. So 5th place. Coming in 4th place is going to be the OG Five Nights at Freddy's, and if the OG Five Nights at Freddy's is in 4th place, you know that FNAF went into some deep shit, because the OG Five Nights at Freddy's barely has a story. It's simplistic, it's very basic. It has the phone guy, he's a manager, he dies on a shift. There's hints and subtleties of a murderer on the loose, of 5 kids having been killed and perhaps stuffed inside these animatronic suits. And that's it. So the fact that this game has a better story than 5 other games is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. But it is the game that started it all, so I have to give credit where credit is due, because without this game, we wouldn't have this franchise to love and talk about to begin with. And I do love the simplicity of this original game, how realistic it felt, how grounded it was, the subtle hints at something paranormal or something supernatural, whilst not really being a confirmation and just leaving it up to the mind to make you think, are these things actually possessed, or are they just wandering around? Are they trying to kill you? Oh yeah, they are trying to kill you. And it just, all that mystery is what made this game so popular, especially the animatronics. The focus and the mystery of the animatronics is what made this game popular. So I'm going to put it at 4th place for me. Taking 3rd place. This is a little bit of a tricky one to rank. And I know some people are not going to agree with this, but I'm going to put Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator 3rd place. And there's a reason why I'm putting it at 3rd. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator definitely feels like a love letter to the fans. It feels like a proper conclusion to everything that we built up to this point. You get to kill off all the villainous main animatronics that you faced once and for all, burning them in a fire. The creator rectifies his wrongs by taking them all out and even giving you a way out, but you decide not to go. You decide to die in the fire, and that's it. Everything burns to the ground, and that is a wrap. The souls are free. Everything is done. Beautifully told, beautifully executed, and how mysterious it was that Fazbear Entertainment is actually the good guys in this game. They're actually working to stop Afton, working to stop this villain from killing more kids and all these other animatronics from killing more kids. And it is a beautiful finale in its own right. It finishes off a lot of stories, answers a lot of questions, and it is beautifully done. If you've seen the ending, you know what I'm talking about. If you know the ending, obviously it should be very clear. And the other endings too are pretty funny too, like the insanity ending and the other endings. It's well done. The story is well done. It's well executed. It's well told. It's not force-feeding you comedy. The comedy is more like an advertisement, which I like. It's not handing you and just talking to you the whole time. It's an advertisement that you're watching, which feels more natural than if it was to be AI, just feeding you comedy, which I like. What holds the story back for me is certain little things here and there. For starters, Circus Baby and Ennard. What happened? Why did they split apart? I know it was answered in the source codes, but if you were playing the FNAF games and you didn't do the whole source code look, you'd be wondering why the hell they're split. Why are they two different animatronics now? When did they split? What happened between them? What's going on there? That's an unanswered question. Next thing, what the hell is going on with Springtrap? Why the hell does he look like that? Why does he look goofy as shit? That's an unanswered question. Next question, where has Henry been all these years? What has he been doing? Where has he been? I feel like Henry should have been like a main focal point. And also, didn't he die in FNAF World? How is he back now? Are we just gonna bypass the fact that he died already and now he's back? Or was that supposed to represent after Pizzeria Simulator? Because if that's the case, then how did... Many questions. I got many questions about that. And speaking of questions, Charlotte Emily is confirmed to be the marionette, which is a use of the novel character in the games because the novel character became very popular. And so they decided to use Charlotte to be the marionette. But that makes things even more confusing and a little bit more complicated because the stories are supposed to be different timelines, but now those timelines seem like they could intertwine at some point. And I honestly don't know. There's little things that bug me about the story that just don't feel right, especially like the explanations of certain things. Like, first off, why is Scraptrap there? He is William Afton. He apparently knows this is a trap, but he still goes there, which makes no sense. Scrap Baby, why does she work for Afton now, despite the fact that she spent the entire last game trying to kill William Afton, or who she thought was William Afton, and now she's just cool with him? She worships him? That doesn't make sense. Is Molten Freddy Ennard, or is Molten Freddy all of the spirits and animatronics, including Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy? We don't really get the answers to these questions, and despite that Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator seeming to answer all questions, it doesn't. It only adds more questions that never get resolved, which in my eyes, brings this down a lot, because even though we had a great conclusion, even though we had a great telling an individual story of this game, it only caused more mysteries that just couldn't be really solved very easily without trying to fill in the gaps yourself with some random bullshit. And so for that, it's going to take third place, and it's not going any higher than that. Coming in second place is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's 2. This game and how it told the story was very well executed. It was perfectly executed. From the nightmare dream sequences of being inside of Freddy Fazbear mask and seeing the old school animatronics next to you, all the way to the death mini games and how it displayed the story in subtle little Atari styled games with a kid dying outside by Purple Man, from the 5 kids dying from the Purple Man, from them being brought back to life by this marionette puppet, all that, and from following the marionette and then getting sidetracked by the purple guy, all of that was beautifully executed and told this story in a very mysterious way that just made you want to engulf more. And the fact that this was a prequel was a revelation at the time. Nobody expected this to be a prequel, and it was a good surprise, even though certain people kind of started to figure it out because, Phone Guy's alive and stuff like that. It was well executed, and the date of 1987 and the confirmation for that was well executed. The only real mystery I have is, what were the nightmare sequences about? Were the nightmare sequences about the previous Fazbear location? Because if that's the case, why does Bonnie and Chica look like their FNAF 1 selves and not their prior selves? That's just a little thing that kind of bothered me, but that's the only thing that really bothers me. Other than that, the story was very subtle, it was very well told, and how each animatronic has their own individual quirks to them, whether it be Toy Bonnie's staring problem, Toy Chica missing her beak, and what that's about, Mangle being this array of parts destroyed by these kids, the marionette being this seemingly sentient being possessed by this unknown child, and the withered animatronics obviously being possessed by the kids and popping up as creepy, and then you got the balloon boy that's just kind of like seemingly teleporting around, and you don't really understand why he's teleporting around, and it's more like, what the hell, how is he in my vent already? How did he get here? I didn't even notice him. I heard him around the halls, but now he's here in my room. Stuff like that. The way that the story is told is so amazing in this game, but I think it is topped by my number 1 pick, Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Finally, I can talk amazing about this game. I've been wanting to talk on the good side of FNAF 3 for the past 3 rankings now, and finally I get a chance to, because Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is beautiful storytelling at its finest. From the killer getting his comeuppance by the ghosts of the children, and dying, from you saving the kids' lives and freeing their spirits through mini games as a representation and a metaphor to the spirits, helping each other out to get freed, from you burning down the building, facing the villain one-on-one years later, finally bringing him down to the ground, stuff like that. It just makes this the perfect ending and the true finale in my eyes to this franchise, and what should have been the perfect stopping point. I think Scott should have stopped at a trilogy. I know his ambition, making up for the horror and the jump scare of Springtrap, brought him down a rabbit hole. No pun intended. Unfortunately, that rabbit hole really started to mess with Scott, and he started to really bring this series down with him. I also like how in the FNAF 3 mini games, you actually have to search through the actual game itself and do these like codes, and they tell you the codes. It's not like a sister location where you have to constantly die in order to get the mini game. You actually have to figure out how the mini games are, because you have to go down the hallway, see the codes, go into the game, and then actually, oh my god, fucker, I just clicked you. You're a fucking dickhead. After every night you get a minigame, you actually have to go down the hallway and you have to see what codes there are, and in the game itself you have to actually find the items or click in the codes that you need to get the minigames and access the minigames, and you could do it as many times as you want, and you have to figure out how to glitch and actually how to get the actual true way to beat the minigame. I really like that, and it's really well done and really well executed. And FNAF 3 was just a perfect stopping point, a perfect story, a perfect ending. And I really do hope that Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, really focuses on this original trilogy and nothing more after that, because we need this original style back, the original roots of this franchise. We need it back desperately, because this is beautiful storytelling at its finest, and this is why I love this franchise to this day. Without this story and how it was told and how it was executed, the original FNAF, I wouldn't care about FNAF. I honestly would never be into it to begin with. And this franchise holds a dear place in my heart. So FNAF 3 easily takes the top spot. And with that, we're going to wrap it up there. Got one more ranking, and it's the re-ranking of the whole franchise, of how I'd rank the games in its entirety. So be tuned for that. Is that how you say that? I don't know. I don't care. I don't even dare cheap adjustment.